What's going on, Bills Mafia? Got a loaded show for you today ahead of NFL Week 11's matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In anticipation of that matchup, Brandon Beane went out there and made multiple roster moves that I believe could make a bigger impact than some Bills fans think. Also, we'll get some big injury news and updates before Week 11 gets underway. And spoiler alert, it is an extensive injury report for Wednesday's practice. What I need you to do before we get into all this stuff, though, is go down below and hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 9,000 subscribers here on the Bills Breakdown. And if you want free, informative, entertaining Bills content every single day right here on YouTube, then all you got to do is go down below and hit the subscribe button. You'll get videos every single day. All right, some roster moves here for Buffalo. Released from the practice squad. We'll keep this one pretty quick here. Kingsley Jonathan, the defensive end, and Christian Wilkerson have been released from the practice squad. Well wishes to them. They were not able to do enough in practice here to see an elevation for the Bills on their active roster, as they have injuries at the defensive line and at wide receiver is unproductive so far this season. But these two guys were not able to get over the hump there. So the Bills did go out there and bring in another defensive lineman, a sneaky signing, I would call it, Morgan Cox. Welcome to Buffalo, Morgan Cox, a defensive end that was undrafted in 2016 out of Colorado State University. Pueblo, a D2 powerhouse, led them to a national title back in the day. Also spent time with the Rams for 4 years from 2016 to 2020, the Packers in 2021, and the Chargers for basically 3 years, 2022 to 2024. Most recently, spent time in the preseason in 2025 with the Atlanta Falcons. But I'm honestly confused, guys. This guy was just sitting out there for the taking in free agency. I mean, he's had a legitimate career up to this point. You got to go back to 2022 where he had his career year with 42 pressures and 6.5 sacks, but he's been no slouch since then. This is also a guy who's been incredibly healthy throughout his career as well. 5.5 sacks in 2023, 3.5 sacks in 2024. Like, this guy's a legit player. And he has also experience as well. Not only does he have legit production throughout his career, but this guy's got playoff experience as well. Was on that Rams team that made the Super Bowl back in 19? Or I guess the Super Bowl was in 2019. It was the 2018 season against the New England Patriots there. So this guy has the experience. He's been in the mud before. The Bills going out there and getting a guy who's shown that he can be productive here on the defensive line. And for that reason, I wouldn't expect Morgan Cox, to be on the practice squad for very long. When you consider the injuries that Buffalo has along their defensive line, it would make sense for the Bills to bring up a guy who's had multiple sacks, 27.5 career sacks. That's a legit career to his name. It makes sense that they would probably bring him up to the active roster at some point here, considering all the guys that are just not on the football field for the Bills along that defensive line. I mean, it's crazy that they have 4 legitimate playmakers on injured reserve, basically out for most of, if not the entire season. Dwayne Carter's out for the entire season. Michael Hoyt's out for the entire season. Ed Oliver tore his bicep. He's going to be out until, maybe an AFC Championship game or a Super Bowl appearance. And then Landon Jackson just tore his MCL and PCL. There's no timetable on his return at this point. Not to mention, you got Joey Bosa with a wrist injury. He's playing with a club on his hand. This Bills defensive line is absolutely bruised and battered. I think a guy like Morgan Cox could potentially be a difference maker along that defensive line. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Will Morgan Cox be a difference maker along that defensive line for the Buffalo Bills? Why for yes and for no? You let me know what you think down in the comments section. More roster moves here, and we talked about it on a couple of videos on the channel already. But Mecole Hardman, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the signing of here today. Comes into the Bills, in a situation where he's signed to the practice squad, but it can kind of be a similar situation to Morgan Cox here. I'm not so sure he's going to be on the practice squad for very long. He's already practicing with the Bills here. He was signed to the practice squad on Monday, and he's already out there in practice. And he did actually mention, after he got a firm handshake from Josh Allen in the whole handshake circle with him and all the receivers, that he kind of felt a little bit left out. He's got to get that rapport up with number 17, but he's happy to be here, and it's going to be an interesting fit. Is he going to be a guy who gets, close to 50% of the snaps on the offensive side of the ball? I'm not so sure. Mecole Hardman has not been a very productive receiver over the past few seasons. You got to go back all the way to 2021, where he had his best receiving season, where he was averaging nearly 12 yards a catch, 700 yards, 2 touchdowns. The year after, didn't even see as much of an opportunity, but he was definitely still a factor in the red zone for the Chiefs there. 4 touchdowns back in 2022, excuse me. And we know this is the guy who caught the game-winning, Super Bowl-winning touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers just a few years ago. So I think he could provide some versatility on the outside, a good speedster who can kind of stretch the defense a little bit, but I don't expect him to be a game-changing wide receiver. Where I do think that he could potentially change the game for the Bills is in the return game. I mean, this is a guy who we've seen be an AP All-Pro at the return spot, was one of the best kick returners in the NFL in his young career, and also has extensive experience in the punt return game as well. And if that doesn't ring any bells for Bills fans, well, here I'll tell you, they have the second worst punt return average in the NFL with 5.8 yards on average per punt return. Mecole Hardman on his career has like a 10-yard return average on punts. So this is clearly the best option the Bills will have there at returner. Sean McDermott noted when speaking to the media on Wednesday, noted his speed, talking about his positional versatility, and it's basically everything he can provide both on offense and on special teams as well. So I'm pretty fired up here for Mecole Hardman to kind of just put the Bills in a little bit of a better spot. We're seeing all these mystery yards go away. The Bills are constantly starting drives further back than their opponents are. I think Mecole Hardman kind of rectify that struggle for the Bills at this point. Now, at practice, Mecole Hardman did work as a returner, so this is kind of what's going on. We're reading in between the lines here. He worked as a returner before going out there and working with the wide receivers and running some routes. So it seems like that's where the Bills kind of have him pigeonholed at right now. But, I mean, with the lack of production we've seen from the Bills receiving core, it's absolutely a possibility that we could see Mecole Hardman running some routes on Sunday. With that being said, in the return game, if you want to see a house call, a return touchdown from Mecole Hardman, how about we manifest it as a community right now? As Bills Mafia together, how about we manifest a touchdown return from Mecole Hardman? Hit that like button if you want to see it, if you want to manifest those things happening in real time. Coming up next, we're going to get some Bills injury updates before Week 11 here, and I said at the top of today's show, it is absolutely an extensive list. But there's some great news that's coming a part of it as well. First, though, I got to tell you guys, the holidays are coming up, and I know people in your family, your friends you're giving gifts to, they're going to want a number 17 in their collection. Not only this one, but they got the white, they got the red, they got even the Bills cold front jersey, the rivalry uniforms. They got them all at this link right here, chatsports.com/Josh Allen. To get yours today, get it now before the holiday season comes along and you're running around scrambling and you can't get an Allen jersey in the house in time to wrap it up for the gift. Go get it today at this link right here, chatsports.com/Josh Allen. That link's in the comment section and description of today's video. All right, let's get to some good news here, right? The full participants in Wednesday's practice. And honestly, as far as these first two names go and the fourth name go, this is incredibly impactful for the Bills. You have A.J. Epinesa coming back from the concussion protocol. Looks like he's going to clear the 5 steps that you need to get back out there on the football field. Also, Josh Palmer back out there on the field for your Buffalo Bills. That is awesome, awesome, awesome news. Been dealing with that ankle sprain for the past 3 or 4 weeks. Jordan Phillips has a wrist injury, but he was a full participant on Wednesday as well. And then T.J. Sanders, we said it in yesterday's preview video leading up to the Tampa Bay game. His practice window off of injured reserve has been opened, and it looks like he's going to be ready to go for this week with him participating already in full on the first day of practice this week. He had that knee injury, he had the scope, and now it looks like he's ready to go. Thad Brown of WROC that up in Rochester was at practice, and he said that Sanders seems strong. Now, albeit it is a no-pads practice, we'll see if he ends up going to more of a limited basis as the week goes along and they're putting pads on there and there's more contact happening. So it's great news for now, but we'll see as the week goes along. I would expect T.J. Sanders, though, to be ready to play. Now, Thad Brown also noted that Josh Palmer looks as good as he has. It's the best that he's looked in weeks in practice. And, I mean, we've been talking about the Bills receiving room. They absolutely need Josh Palmer to go out there and separate and get open and be a deep threat for Josh Allen. He was coming along in that Falcons game, and then, of course, he goes down with an ankle injury. As far as the limited participants on Wednesday go, this is where it gets extensive, and this is where it gets kind of scary for the Mafia here. Christian Benford still limited with a groin. Terrell Bernard limited with the ankle injury, and it really just does feel like Terrell Bernard is kind of hobbled throughout this entire season for the most part. I mentioned it before, Joey Bosa playing with that club on his wrist. He's still dealing with that, but he was a limited participant on Wednesday. Taron Johnson with the groin. He and Benford both did not play last Sunday, so they're going to need them back absolutely in order to guard Emeka Egbuka and Tez Johnson. Specifically, Cam Lewis is going to need to be back as well because he's the reinforcement there at the nickel. He's dealing with a calf injury, and as far as what we know about calf injuries, it's never just a one-week injury. Khalil Shakir, ankle and ribs. He seems to be banged up a little bit. Shaq Thompson still dealing with the hamstring that kept him out in Week 10. And Dorian Williams, another linebacker, dealing with a groin injury. So, not great. I'm not exactly sure the prognosis on all these guys playing or not, but they are not all the way healthy. That's all we know right now. As far as guys that did not practice on Wednesday. Dalton Kincaid, we know he's probably not going to play this week. He's probably not going to play next week either. He's dealing with that hamstring injury, which we know there's no such thing as a 1-week hamstring either. Fidarian Mathis along the defensive line. It's great news that TJ Sanders is out there practicing in full because Mathis, who was just recently signed to the 53-man roster for the rest of the season, he's dealing with a shoulder and did not practice on Wednesday. Doesn't look good for his availability in Week 11. Look, the notion I'm getting as the season goes along, I just feel like the Bills seem to get hurt more than everybody else. Like, I feel like they're the San Francisco 49ers of the AFC. It's just unfortunate, man. Like, every week we got guys DNP. Every week we got guys listed out. Every week we got to go out there and sign guys off the street to be able to just have bodies for this Buffalo Bills roster. And it's just incredibly frustrating. We have to look at this training staff this offseason as well when we're going over front office, coaching staff, and any other decisions that need to be made football-wise. As far as some injuries on the Tampa Bay side of things go, before we wrap up on today's show, though, not great news for the Buffalo Bills. Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, back at practice, albeit in limited fashion here. And this is the first time Bucky's been practicing in, 3 months, 2 months so far this season. Then Chris Godwin's been out since week 4 as well. So I wouldn't hold my breath if you're a Tampa Bay fan on these two guys playing this week, but it is something to note that they are back at practice. That will do it for today's show. Make sure you give me a follow over on Twitter because we'll be talking more Buffalo Bills over there at Tyler J. Smith. 2 H's because the name's common, but I am not. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. YouTube.com/Bills News for the latest and greatest on your Buffalo Bills all season long. We'll also be live for Bills versus Bucks on Sunday. So we'll see you guys then. We'll see you guys in the next video. As always, let's go, Buffalo.